It's time!
The Montreal Canadiens signed Lane Hutson to an 8-year, $70.8 million extension with an annual average value of $8.85 million. Incredible value for the Montreal Canadiens. Hudson's coming off a Calder Trophy season where he had 6 goals and 66 points in 82 games in almost 23 minutes of average ice time. Of note, last year, Hutson finished the year with 25 points in his last 26 games. In locking up Lane Hutson, Montreal now has 5 defensemen under contract through next season. The only NHL defensemen left to sign are Mike Matheson and Arbor Xhekaj. Xhekaj is a restricted free agent. He's currently earning $1.3 million, and Matheson is going to be a UFA with a current cap hit of $4.875 million. One can assume that Reinbacher will hopefully be ready to take the leap into the NHL next season. So realistically, Montreal only needs to fill one slot. That being said, I do think the Canadiens are going to push hard to re-sign Matheson, and I do think he'd be willing to stick around at a pretty team-friendly deal. Just in seeing the culture and identity the Canadiens have built around the team, it looks like everyone's pulling the same way, and players are willing to take a bit of a discount in order to stay here. They seem to like playing in Montreal, and I know it's true for me, but in my work, I place a lot of value on whether or not I'm enjoying myself, and less so on the actual pay. Now, obviously, you're not going to ignore the money entirely, and you're going to want to be fairly compensated. But as long as you're happy at work, you're going to be willing to maybe take a bit less to stay in an environment that you really enjoy. I, for one, think the value on the Hudson contract is just incredible. Looking at some of the deals that have been signed lately, most notably Kirill Kaprizov at $17 million, you're seeing contracts that are coming in at an AAV that I was concerned about. I thought Hudson would be making north of 10, and I was already ready in my head to be accepting Hudson signing for around $10.5 million a season. So coming in almost $2 million under that, huge win for the Habs, huge win for Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon. Can't praise them enough for what they've been able to put together here. We're in the first quote-unquote competitive year of the rebuild. I don't think the Habs are by any means a Stanley Cup contender, but I do think there's a real expectation of at least making the playoffs this year, and I'd see missing the playoffs as a bit of a step back. While they definitely overachieved last year in bringing in Dobson and bringing in Bolduc and another year of growth for all their young core, I think missing the playoffs would be a big disappointment for the Canadiens, but I don't think it would be the end of the world. Just looking forward to next season, Montreal has $27.8 million in projected cap space. And Montreal's not going to have too many people to sign. Of all the players signed on the Canadiens, the only players with expiring contracts are Patrick Laine, who'll be a UFA coming off his $8.7 million cap hit, Joel Veleno, who's going to be an RFA, Kirby Dach will be an RFA, and Zach Bolduc will be an RFA. On defense, Matheson's going to be an unrestricted free agent, and Arbor Xhekaj will be a restricted free agent. Of all those pending free agents, the only one I see expecting a big raise is going to be Zach Bolduc. In looking at the cap values of the current Canadiens roster, I don't think there's any world in which Bolduc's going to be coming in over $8 million. Even if he lights the world on fire this year and scores 20, 30, even 35 goals, I think it's hard to see Bolduc coming in at a cap hit of anything over 8.5. I think I see Suzuki as a hard cap that the Canadiens aren't going to be willing to go over, especially with a guy coming right off of his ELC. So in all, you're looking at $27.8 million in cap space, and only one guy looking at a big raise in Bolduc. Matheson might get re-signed for something in the $5 or $6 million range. I think for anything more, they'd probably let him walk. But the Canadiens are going to have some big money to throw around in free agency. Now, that being said, listening to Hughes when he spoke to the media today, I don't think Montreal's going to be looking to swing big in free agency. I think they're going to continue making their biggest moves in the trade market. This Bolduc for Mailloux trade is already looking like a big win for the Canadiens. And given that the Canadiens have 2 second-round picks and 2 fourth-round picks this season, I think they're in line to make another trade at the deadline, especially if the team is looking like they're going to be a playoff team. I know it would be everyone's dream to see Crosby with Montreal. I don't know if that's going to be viable. Fingers crossed, you never know. But a guy like Crosby on his $8.7 million cap hit would fit perfectly into the Canadiens' plans. It looks like they'd rather not spend more than Suzuki's making on any of their forwards, and I think that's still a pretty sustainable option until we start looking at maybe a Demidov extension in a couple years. Looking even further into the future, Anderson and Gallagher are both effective players on the roster right now. That being said, Anderson in particular is probably a bit overpaid. Gallagher at 6.5 is looking a little less onerous at this point, especially with the cap rising. But after the 26-27 season, they're both going to be off the books, and I don't envision Gallagher's career will continue at that point, and I don't think the Canadiens will be re-signing Anderson. That said, Montreal's going to be looking at $63 million in cap space in 2 years. And you're talking about already having Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky, Newhook, Evans, Demidov, Kapanen, Dobson, Hudson, Gooley, Carrier, and Struble all under contract at that point. All those guys under contract, including both your goaltenders, with $63 million in cap space. You'll have the extension for Bolzuk on the books, and you're also going to be looking at an extension for Demidov and possibly Kapanen, who are both going to be coming off RFA deals. Again, those guys are coming off of ELCs, and what we've seen from the Habs is they're not going to be overpaying on guys coming off of their first contract. Dobson's contract was at 9.5 because he was coming off of his second deal already. And Kent Hughes pointed to that in his press conference today. Looking at Bolzuk, looking at Demidov in 2 years, I don't see any of them coming in at north of 8. So you're going to have some massive cap space for the Canadiens. And I think they're targeting 2026-2027 as their first year to be a real Stanley Cup contender. I haven't been this excited about a Canadiens roster in a very long time. Probably since around the Centennial season or that era of Canadiens hockey. I cannot wait to see what this team looks like, not only this season, but in the years to come. I think we have a core that is locked up long term, that love playing together, and are going to do some pretty special things in Montreal. In looking at the way that Marty spoke about what exactly he did at the end of practice, Marty talked about announcing Lane's contract to the team. He sent Lane Hutson out on a lap and spoke to the rest of the team quickly and said, hey, by the way, it's done, he's signed. And the team just poured off the bench, rushed Lane, and they all celebrated with him. And Marty described it as like an OT winner kind of celebration. It's really something great to see, and it speaks to the chemistry that this team has, the respect that these guys have for each other, and how well they seem to work together and want to play together long term. Really, I just watched Marty's press conference and had a smile on my face the whole time. I thought it was great. Just the energy around this team, so positive. Even when you have minor gripes with certain coaching decisions or the way the power play is being run, you can't help but feel happy about the way this team has been constructed and the people running it. They know exactly what's important, and it's having the right group of guys who want to play in Montreal and are happy to play in Montreal. And we're seeing it with all these contracts being signed here. It's not coincidence that Montreal is repeatedly getting guys for below market value. Kent spoke about it in his press conference, the importance of signing these guys off of their ELC and getting those deals done long term. He mentioned that Dobson's contract was a different animal. He was coming off a second contract already. He wasn't coming off of an ELC, and as a result, the pay structure is different. So if Montreal can lock up these guys coming off of their ELCs for 8 years at a time, you're saving yourself tons of money long term. You're keeping your players happy because you're showing them that you have faith in them. The next big deal for the Canadiens to sign is going to be Zach Bolduc. I'm curious to see if anything comes out in the media soon or if they're waiting a little longer, seeing as he's so new to the team. But I'd like to see him get signed sooner rather than later because I don't think his value is going to do anything but increase over the course of this season. Starting off with 3 goals in 3 games, obviously I don't think it's sustainable. But if this is a 22-year-old power forward who's going to score 20 plus goals for the Canadiens, and he's been scoring at a pretty impressive rate even going back to last season in St. Louis, he's going to start costing you a lot of money if he keeps up at this rate. I think Montreal needs to get on it, sign Bolduc soon. I don't think it's an emergency, but I think they can get ahead of this one and make another deal that looks great in a few years' time. Anyway, guys, Lane Hutson's a Hab for 8 more years. Core of this roster is set for a long term, and I think we have some really exciting years coming up. Let me know what you guys think. Take it easy.